Imagine you're, you know, just venting to a colleague over a private text message, like complaining about how chaotic your company has been lately.
Right, something we've all done.
Exactly. So you hit send, you close your laptop, and you go to bed. But then the next day, you wake up and you're locked out of all your accounts. You're fired.
Oh, wow. Just immediately.
Immediately. And the crazy part is, it's not because your colleague took a screenshot and, snitched to HR.
Right.
It's because a hidden piece of software just running quietly in the background of your computer flagged the word chaotic. It logged your typing cadence to actually guess your frustration level, and then it automatically alerted your boss.
I mean, it sounds exactly like a plot of a dystopian thriller, doesn't it?
It really does.
But it is a very real scenario that's happening right now. And what's truly wild is that, legally speaking, in many jurisdictions, you've essentially given your employer the green light to do this, and you probably didn't even realize it.
Yeah, that is terrifying. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. Today, we are examining a really fascinating and frankly quite alarming stack of public case files and analytical reports from the Australian Workplace Discrimination Representative, or AWDR.
Yeah, the AWDER files. They are incredibly detailed.
They really are. Specifically, we're focusing on their deep documentation regarding this huge rise in workplace surveillance. We've got some highly publicized tech worker dismissals to look at, and just the massive privacy issues surrounding all of this.
Because the mission of this deep dive is really to explore those rapidly blurring lines, between workplace management, digital surveillance, and your fundamental rights as an employee.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. We really need to start with a story that kind of completely flips the usual script.
Yeah, to understand this modern tension of workplace surveillance, we have to look at a super rare case, one where the employees actually decided to monitor the employer.
Right. The famous Pinterest paradox.
Ah, yes. This unfolded back in January of 2026. And I mean, it perfectly illustrates the double standard at play here.
So the social media giant Pinterest announces they are laying off 15% of their workforce. That's roughly 700 people losing their jobs.
A huge hit to the company.
Massive. And the company stated it was just a strategic move to prioritize AI-focused roles. But here is the really bizarre catch. Management flat out refused to disclose the names of the dismissed staff to the rest of the company.
Right, which is just wild. Management stated justification during the company-wide meeting was, privacy concerns for the departing employees. So they just kept the list totally under wraps.
Under lock and key.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But practically speaking, that creates an environment of just intense, paralyzing anxiety. I mean, you log in on a Tuesday, and you literally have no idea if your manager, your project partner, or the person you eat lunch with every day is even still employed.
Yeah, just total radio silence. So enter two Pinterest software engineers. They decide the secrecy is just absurd. So they write a custom piece of code.
And we should clarify, it wasn't malware, right?
Right, exactly. It wasn't malware. It didn't read private messages or anything. It was literally just a script designed to monitor Pinterest's internal communication directories and track account deactivations. Whenever an employee's profile was removed from the company system, the script just pinged an alert. And they shared this system with the remaining staff so people could finally figure out, who had actually been let go.
Exactly. It was basically an automated roll call, just functioning on digital breadcrumbs left in the system.
Wait, if the company is purposely hiding who got fired, aren't these engineers just acting like modern-day Robin Hoods of data? I mean, they were providing a basic level of transparency for their peers who were just left completely in the dark.
Well, Pinterest management definitely did not see them as folk heroes, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
When leadership discovered this alert system, they fired both engineers immediately.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and the company completely slammed them in a public statement. They accused them of improperly accessing confidential company information, and they argued that this was a severe violation of their former colleagues' privacy.
Which is just incredibly rich considering what companies actually do to our data every single day.
Oh, absolutely. But Pinterest CEO, Bill Reddy, drew a very hard line on this. He explicitly labeled the two engineers as obstructionist.
Obstructionist, wow.
Yeah, he basically said that while healthy debate is fine, building tools that actively undermine management's decisions, well, that just isn't going to fly. Suggesting that anyone not aligned with the company's mission should probably just leave.
What's fascinating to me is the public reaction to all this. The internal employees were pretty quiet, which makes sense. They were probably terrified for their own jobs.
Right, staying under the radar.
Yeah, but the internet just had a field day analyzing the hypocrisy of it all.
What's fascinating here is how the public on Reddit really dissected the underlying motives. Like, was that obstructionist label actually about protecting individual privacy?
Right.
Or was it just corporate PR speak for, you ruined our controlled narrative?
Right.
The debate highlighted this massive divide. On one side, you had commenters arguing that workplace privacy laws are meant to shield individual workers. They aren't there to give a publicly traded company cover to hide massive layoffs from investors and the remaining staff.
Exactly. You don't fire the people bringing clarity unless that clarity is a liability to your corporate image, right?
Exactly the argument.
But then there was this entirely different camp online that didn't care about the morals at all. They argued from a standpoint of just brutal self-preservation.
Oh, yeah, I saw those threads.
They were just pointing out that playing corporate vigilante for transparency over keeping a paycheck is just career suicide. Like,
Right.
why risk it?
And honestly, that debate sets the perfect stage for the systemic issue at hand here.
Mm.
These engineers were immediately fired for monitoring the company's digital footprint.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, employers monitor their workers on a scale that is basically unprecedented in human history.
Mm-hmm.
Every single day. And the law fully permits it.
Which is the perfect pivot to this 2026 report called Surveillance Creep. It's by the UTS Human Technology Institute. And I want to group these numbers for you because looking at the raw data is just staggering.
It really is an eye-opener.
Think about your own team or your own office right now. According to this report, over 90% of Australian employers are currently monitoring their remote workers. 9 out of 10.
It's a total saturation of surveillance.
Yeah.
And we aren't just talking about corporate desk jobs here either. This applies to retail workers, factory floors, trucking routes. It is everywhere, ubiquitous.
But the perception gap is the real kicker here. While over 90% of employers are tracking you, fewer than half of the workforce is even aware that this AI or monitoring tech is actually running.
Less than half.
Yeah, and nearly 1 in 10 workers is just completely oblivious that any monitoring exists at all.
And honestly, that gap is by design. The technology is practically invisible now.
Right.
Historically, workplace surveillance was a big, bulky security camera bolted to the ceiling. You knew when you were on camera.
Obviously.
Today, it's frictionless. It's just a line of code running silently beneath your spreadsheet.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I mean, I understand a boss tracking when I log in or out. It's annoying, sure, but I grasp the underlying logic of a digital punch card.
Sure, basic timekeeping.
Exactly. But reading through these AWDR files, some of these tools leap right past basic productivity and straight into sci-fi dystopia territory. Like, how are they tracking us exactly?
Well, it's far beyond your browser history. The UTS report details physical, biological, and even psychological tracking.
Psychological, wow.
Yes. On a physical front, we aren't just talking about AI-enabled CCTV that uses facial recognition to track your specific movements. We're talking about environmental sensors.
What does that mean? Like room temperature?
No, more personal. For instance, they install these discrete sensors under office desks that measure the absence of light bouncing back from a person's legs.
You're kidding.
I wish I was. It determines, down to the minute, exactly how long your chair has been empty.
Under desk light sensors. That is just unbelievable.
It goes deeper into biometrics. Beyond standard fingerprint scans, some companies are deploying wearable neurotechnology.
Wait, neurotech? Like brainwaves?
Exactly. Headsets or hard hats that monitor your actual brainwaves. And company-issued smartwatches that collect physiological data, like your heart rate, while you work.
Neurotechnology at work. That is, I can't even process that. But to me, the absolute most shocking mechanism detailed in these files is the AI emotion and sentiment analysis.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
How does a piece of software even attempt to measure an emotion?
It's a combination of biometric and linguistic mapping. Basically, these AI systems integrate directly into your daily tools, like Zoom or Teams or Slack. If you're on a video call, the software literally maps your micro-expressions, the tension in your jaw, the frequency of your blinks, the subtle shifting of your eyes.
Wow.
And then it cross-references all that physical data against a baseline of what it considers engaged behavior.
So it's essentially running a biometric polygraph while I'm just, trying to give a basic status update.
Effectively, yes. And it extends to text, too. The AI scans the linguistic patterns of your emails and instant messages.
Right.
It looks at your typing cadence, like are you typing faster and hitting backspace more aggressively than usual.
Oh, guilty of that one.
We all are.
Mhm.
But it uses that sentiment analysis to actually flag your manager if your communications are trending toward frustrated, angry, or disengaged.
That is a fundamental shift. I mean, we aren't just measuring output anymore. We are policing the internal psychological state of the worker.
Exactly. It completely alters the psychological contract of employment,
Yeah.
which naturally brings us to how workers are actually reacting to this.
Right, because people must hate this.
They really do. According to a poll by the Mean to Roof Foundation, which was cited in the AWDR files, the majority of workers, so over half, view this tech as a profound breach of trust.
I'm honestly surprised it's only half.
Well, the acceptance of surveillance is highly conditional. 38% believe employers have the right to do it, but there are huge caveats.
Right. The data shows people are generally pretty pragmatic. Nearly 70% are totally fine with monitoring if it's strictly to protect company property or ensure physical safety.
Like preventing a forklift accident on a warehouse floor.
Exactly. But the moment you pivot that exact same camera or software to track productivity or police their behavior, worker approval plummets to under 40%.
Because workers are trying to draw a line in the sand. And the discomfort is, as you'd expect, highest with the most invasive tech. The vast majority overwhelmingly object to audio surveillance, live screen monitoring, and of course, emotion recognition.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it just seems so damaging.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's not just about an invasion of privacy. It's actually a public health issue.
Really?
Yeah. The surveillance creep report explicitly connects this hypermonitoring to severe spikes in stress, anxiety, and even physical injury.
Oh, because people are rushing.
Exactly.
Hmm.
When workers know a machine is tracking their bathroom breaks down to the second, they attempt to maintain an unsustainable robotic pace.
I can imagine. It creates a massive chilling effect across the whole culture. You'd constantly second-guess every keystroke, every joke you make in the break room chat.
Precisely.
Ah.
And that chilling effect fundamentally undermines workplace rights. I mean, think about it. If you know an algorithm is scanning your messages for negative sentiment, how likely are you to speak out about unsafe working conditions?
Or raise a harassment complaint.
Or discuss unionizing with a colleague? The sheer awareness of the surveillance modifies your behavior into total compliance.
I'm just trying to figure out how this is legally permitted. I'm assuming this all comes down to that mountain of onboarding paperwork we sign on day one, right? Like, we're essentially signing away our right to privacy in exchange for a paycheck without even realizing it. Is that how they get away with it?
That is precisely the loophole. Australia, like many regions honestly, relies on a highly fragmented and incredibly outdated patchwork of privacy laws.
Yeah, laws from before Zoom existed.
Right. The legislation often fails to define what unreasonable surveillance actually means in a modern digital context. So employers just use consent as an absolute shield.
So, buried on page 42 of a digital PDF, there's a tiny line saying employee agrees to IT monitoring. You click accept, and suddenly they can map your facial expressions.
Exactly. But Sarah Sacker from the Human Technology Institute raises a really crucial counterargument in the report. She argues that this type of consent is basically an illusion.
Because you have no choice.
Exactly. Consent can never be truly free or informed when your livelihood is on the line. Your ability to pay your mortgage or feed your family is hanging in the balance. You can't sit there and negotiate page 42 of the onboarding doc. You just have to sign it to get the job.
Which is a profound power imbalance.
It really is. That's why Professor Edward Santo, who co-authored the UTS report, is lobbying so hard for a new legal framework. He proposes replacing that bare minimum consent with what he calls a fair and reasonable test.
Okay, how would that work?
Under this test, an employer couldn't just point to a signed contract and say, hey, they agreed. They would have to legally prove in court that tracking your eye movements, for instance, is strictly necessary for your specific job function.
Which is a much higher bar.
Much higher. It has to be proportionate to the business need, and it has to actually respect basic human rights.
Okay, to really pull this abstract legal theory down into reality, let's look at the SafeTrack scandal from early 2025. Because reading this case file from the AWDR honestly felt like reading a horror story.
It is the ultimate cautionary tale. It shows exactly what happens when management operates in that legal gray area without a fair and reasonable test to hold them back.
So, SafeTrack is an Australian online compliance training company. In early 2025, leadership was reportedly getting frustrated with what they perceived as underperformance from their remote workforce.
Right.
So to solve this, they deploy a US-based monitoring software called Terramind.
And we should clarify here, Terramind isn't just checking to see if you log into the corporate VPN. It provides real-time, live feed screen analytics.
Like a live broadcast of your desktop.
Yes, and it generates instant behavior alerts for the employer.
But the deployment is where it crosses a massive, terrifying line. SafeTrack configured Terramind not just to record the desktop screens, but to actually activate the physical microphones on employee laptops by default.
Yeah.
And they deployed this entirely silently. No one knew.
For up to 10 hours a day. Just think about the implications of that.
It's sickening.
For roughly 2 months, this company was secretly capturing the ambient audio of their employees' private homes.
It's like your employer installing a one-way mirror with a microphone right in your home office or your living room. You can't see them, but they have a live, unfiltered feed of your private sanctuary.
Yep.
The AWDR sources note the microphones picked up everything over those 10-hour stretches. They recorded children whispering in the background, private telehealth appointments with doctors, and late-night venting sessions between colleagues.
The psychological fallout from this was immense. When the staff finally discovered the true extent of the surveillance, absolute panic set in.
Of course.
The report notes that employees literally started hiding their laptops in closets when they weren't actively typing.
Oh my God.
People were walking out into the street just to take a personal phone call because they no longer trusted the privacy of their own living rooms.
Naturally, 2 employees discovered the breach, and they refused to stay quiet about it, so they complained to SafeTrack management. And then they blow the whistle.
Good for them.
Yeah. They go to the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, they go to WorkSafe, and they even report it to the Victoria Police.
They took it all the way.
They did. And the reward for their transparency. Within weeks, both workers were locked out of their accounts without notice and summarily fired.
Just unbelievable retaliation.
How did SafeTrack possibly justify firing them after illegally recording them?
Well, the bitter irony here is that SafeTrack used the very data they secretly collected to try and justify the dismissals. For one employee, they claimed the Terramind analytics show they were idle for a significant portion of the workday.
But idle just means you aren't clicking a mouse. You could be reading a physical document or brainstorming or talking to a client on your cell phone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It completely conflates physical stillness with unproductivity.
Right.
And for the other employee, SafeTrack pointed to a private text message that the software had intercepted. The worker had described the company's internal environment to a colleague as the Wild West.
The Wild West, that's it.
That's it. SafeTrack actually argued that this private intercepted text posed a severe risk to their commercial reputation, and they used that to justify an immediate firing.
That is just infuriating, and it's an incredibly terrifying position for a worker to be in.
Yeah.
You're up against a corporation that has deeper pockets, a whole legal team, and literally terabytes of your own stolen audio and data to use against you. Where do you even turn in that situation?
Well, this is where the mechanisms for fighting back come into play. Because under the Fair Work Act 2009 in Australia, it is strictly illegal for an employer to dismiss a worker for exercising a workplace right.
Okay.
And raising a formal complaint about illegal or invasive surveillance is absolutely a protected workplace right.
So the 2 SafeTrack employees filed unfair dismissal claims. And the good news in this specific case is that by late 2025, one of them successfully reached a settlement via a Fair Work Commission conciliation.
Let's briefly explain conciliation because it's a really important concept. It's essentially a structured, mediated negotiation that happens before you are forced into a formal, expensive courtroom battle.
Got it.
It's designed to resolve the dispute fairly. However, walking into a conciliation against your employer's HR team and their corporate lawyers is incredibly daunting for an individual.
Oh, I can't even imagine. Which brings us to why organizations like the Australian Workplace Discrimination Representatives exist in the first place, and why their files were so vital for today's deep dive.
Yes, their role in leveling that playing field just cannot be overstated.
So what does this all mean for you? Let's say you find yourself in a SafeTrack scenario. You need to know that AWDR are workplace relations specialists.
Right.
They are not lawyers, and they don't give legal advice, but they have over 30 years of experience standing by everyday Australians. They literally exist to bridge that massive asymmetry of power and data.
They provide dedicated representation and support through the often overwhelming Fair Work system, whether you are dealing with an unfair dismissal, a general protection dispute, sexual harassment, or, just navigating a toxic environment created by surveillance.
Right.
Having an experienced specialist by your side changes the dynamic entirely.
And what I've found so crucial in their documentation is their accessibility. They operate 24/7.
It's huge.
Yeah, when you call, a real human in Australia answers the phone. And because the fear of huge legal fees often stops people from fighting back, AWDR handles certain claims on a no-win, no-fee basis.
Which is incredible.
It really ensures that your bank account balance doesn't determine your access to basic fairness.
This raises an important question, really. AWDR has provided guidance to over 16,000 clients across the country. 16,000.
Wow.
How many of those thousands of individuals simply had no idea what their rights were under the Fair Work Act or equal opportunity laws before they finally made that phone call? Employers often rely heavily on the employee's ignorance of the law.
The power imbalance thrives in the dark.
Precisely. Organizations like AWDR shine a light on that. They offer the necessary representation to remind workers that they do not have to just accept a forced resignation or suffer in silence simply because some piece of algorithm flagged them as unproductive.
It is a really powerful reality check. The technology mapping our faces might be cutting edge, but your fundamental right to be treated fairly and respectfully at work has been established for a long, long time.
Absolutely. The mechanisms to hold companies accountable are built into the system.
Yeah.
You just have to secure the right support and representation to navigate them.
All right, let's quickly recap this incredibly intense journey. We started with the Pinterest paradox. Those engineers who were fired for simply building a digital roll call to provide the transparency their employer refused to give.
Right.
We moved to the terrifying reality that 9 out of 10 remote workers are being tracked, often by practically invisible AI evaluating their actual emotional state. And we explored the SafeTrack scandal, highlighting the terrifying reality of an employer capturing 10 hours of ambient audio from inside an employee's private home.
The overarching through line across all these sources is that the boundary between private life and work obligations has literally never been thinner. Technology has handed employers a tool set that extends their reach far, far beyond the traditional office walls.
Which leaves us with a really critical thought to end on today. As these AI tools and monitoring systems become completely frictionless, woven seamlessly into the very chat apps and email platforms we use to do our jobs every single day, will there come a day when clocking off physically means absolutely nothing because that digital tether never truly breaks?
It's a scary thought.
How will we redefine the concept of a home sanctuary when the office is literally always listening?
It is undoubtedly the most profound challenge for the modern workforce over the next decade.
Something to seriously mull over the next time you open your laptop at the kitchen table or vent to a coworker over a text message. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, keep questioning the systems around you, and remember your rights. We'll catch you next time.